Also, not me drinking iced coffee when it's like 30 degrees outside. Hi friends, welcome back, or just welcome if you're new. My name is Emily, and today I have my 2020 Nano recap for you guys. I'm going to ask you to please excuse the lovely blank wall behind me. I am at my parents' house right now, and currently in my old room, which my mom has turned into this gorgeous little office with a bunch of plants and like a handmade desk and a bunch of lamps and stuff. It's super cute, but unfortunately, the window placement does not allow me to film in a spot that can show you any of that because the lighting is weird, so here's this lovely cream whitish wall. I'm so sorry. So if you watched my last video, I put a little note at the beginning about how my plan to vlog my nano experience kind of fell apart, but I didn't want to leave you guys hanging with like no videos for a month, so I put up that video, which I had filmed like a couple of months before and then I just never posted it. I don't know why. And then I told you guys that I would give you a little nano recap either at the end of November or the beginning of December. And I thought that wrap up was going to be a little bit different. I thought I would use Thanksgiving break to like power through my draft and rack up my word count, emerge a nano finisher, but I didn't do that. And here's why that's okay. First of all, I just want to tell you a little bit about my nano experience. I've known about nano for a long time, since I was probably in middle school, but in middle school and high school, I felt like I never really had time to do it. And it was either that or I felt like I just couldn't do it. I mean, 50,000 words in 30 days, absolutely not. But my first time doing nano was actually in college, NaNoWriMo 2019. Nano 2019 was my first experience getting through a full rough draft, because before that, I'd started a bunch of WIPs or works in progress, but I'd always left them unfinished. But this idea, I was calling All the Stars at the time, was this big idea about space pirates and family drama and romance, and I was super excited to write it. So I decided that I was going to do it. I was going to reach that goal no matter what. And I sort of did. I mean, I got 42K, but I did pretty much finish my story. I tied up most of the big loose ends, cracked my knuckles after writing 90 words per minute for 27 days. I even got this one printed and bound, like I got a plastic cover over it and everything, my first draft, so I could hold it in my hands and be like, look, I finished. And I'm gonna be honest, it didn't really feel the way that I thought it would. I wasn't like relieved, I didn't get emotional or anything. I just kind of was like holding it and I thought, yeah, okay, I finished, so what now? I'll come back to this whole thing later, moving on for now. And that now what was editing, a process during which I discovered I had written an absolutely horrendous first draft. I know, first drafts are supposed to be bad, but please believe me when I tell you that All the Stars Draft 1 is so bad. Like, consistency, who is she? My prose is lacking, my world building was like subpar. Absolutely not. I eventually figured out what wasn't working, and it was the world, I think. There were just too many moving pieces, I just couldn't keep them all straight. So I decided to take my lovely pirates out of space and make them normal pirates, I suppose. Except that this year I then decided to set them in a fantasy world, thereby completely undoing all of the thinking that I had done about simplifying my world. But that's not a bad thing by any means. I mean, Cassia, my protagonist, she's meant to be in this fictional kingdom of Emissary. She's meant for her wooden ship that sails on actual water instead of space. She's supposed to be here, but I just couldn't write what I believe is going to be her extremely complex story in just a month. So all in all, my nano word count for A Treacherous Sea, which is the draft that I was working on this time around, came out to about 15K, including the plotting and the scratch work that I did. So honestly, not bad for writing in a pandemic and during one of the most stressful semesters of my entire life, but not great either. But here's why it's totally okay that I didn't finish. Firstly, this idea, this world, these characters, they just feel so much bigger than a nano project. Cassia has been taking up space in my head for like 2 years almost, since the end of my senior year of high school. Obviously, I've done a lot of work with her. I've done a lot of work with the secondary characters and the tertiary characters and the antagonists and all of that good stuff. And I've done a lot of work with the world. And when I tell you I've done a lot of work with the world, I really do mean it. This Kingdom of Emissary, this fictional like fantasy world, was absolutely not what it was at the beginning. We were half on Earth and half in space. There were people getting kidnapped from Earth and taken to space on accident. There were aliens and galaxy-eyed girls and mind control powers. Then I switched everything to completely in space, and there were ballrooms and casinos and mutinies and swords. There are obviously still swords, by the way. And now I've grounded my story. Well, grounded as in taken it out of space and sort of put it on the ground. I mean, one could theoretically argue that a land-bound fantasy story is a little less grounded than a space-bound sci-fi story, but we don't have to worry about that right now. On this topic, really quickly back to that, okay, I finished, so now what thing? I think the reason I felt that way for Nano 2019 is because my idea wasn't in its final iteration yet. And I put final in quotes because A Treacherous Sea is most certainly going to change a heck of a lot between now and whenever I finish it. But at least right now, I know that it feels right. You know, it feels good, it sits well in my head and in my heart, and I think that's a really important thing to have when you're kind of grabbing onto an idea and running with it. I pushed all the stars way too hard, and I think that's why it didn't work out. And I certainly don't want to make the same mistake with A Treacherous Sea as I did with All the Stars last year. The bottom line of this whole point is that this idea is huge, and every writer can say that, because if you're going to write a novel, your idea has to be huge. But I just feel like, for me, the hugeness of this idea just wouldn't lend itself well to writing a shoddy first draft in 30 days and then having to rewrite everything. I know that sometimes that's beneficial, but if I had done that without actually fleshing out all of the details of my world and mostly knowing what's going to happen plot-wise and character development-wise, it just wouldn't have really worked out for me. And I want to dedicate time to these characters and their arcs and the plot and the story and the themes and all that stuff because it's super important to me. I want to make them a priority. And I don't want to feel like I have to rush to get a quota or something. Because I'm not a working author, I have that luxury. If you are a working author, you need to work under deadlines, which totally makes sense. I can work with deadlines, I can grind out a good amount of pages in one sitting. If school has taught me nothing else, it's taught me how to do that. But right now with this idea, I don't know. I just want to give it the time that it deserves. It's really special to me, and I just feel like it deserves more than a 30-day first draft. That being said, I do not think that people who write 30-day first drafts don't care about their ideas, because obviously that's a ridiculous claim to make. Everybody cares about their idea, otherwise they're not going to be writing it. So I just want to make it clear that I am not saying that. I'm just talking about my own personal feelings about Nano and writing first drafts, developing ideas, all that good stuff. Secondly, we're in the midst of a global pandemic. I'm in the most stressful semester of my entire life, online might I add, which makes it even more stressful, and I moved out of my parents' house, and so now I'm living in an apartment for the first time really away from my parents other than college dorms, which don't really count because they had people to cook for you. Now I have to cook for myself. I gotta shop for myself, clean for myself, meet all of my needs myself. It's a lot. I'm adjusting to this whole new routine, this whole new part of my life. And I knew going into this that Nano is a giant project to add onto my to-do list, and I might not finish. And I needed to prepare myself weeks in advance and start that positive self-talk and be like, you know what? It's okay if you don't finish. You have a lot going on. Nano is huge. If you don't get to 50K, it's really not that big of a deal. I really wanted to finish, don't get me wrong. I think that would have been awesome. But like I said before, the hugeness of this idea just didn't lend itself to that. Also, the time that I had available to write didn't lend itself to that either. That being said though, I certainly could have made more of an effort. I did slack a little bit, I'll admit it. By the time I actually consciously decided that I was going to stop doing Nano, I hadn't written for 5 days consecutively, and that was unintentional. I prioritized other things over writing, and even when I had time to write, I decided not to and to do other things, and I shouldn't have done that. But that doesn't make me a bad Nano participant, that doesn't make me a bad writer, that doesn't make me a bad storyteller. It just makes me human. I think we as writers, and even just we as people, need to start realizing that just because you don't complete a project in the time that you thought you would complete it, doesn't mean that you're bad at what you do. It just means that things pop up in life, because life is crazy. I don't need to say that, everybody knows that, especially now, and it's okay to cut yourself a little bit of slack. Also, a little bit on that note, thinking negatively about your writing habits will negatively impact your story. At least that's what I found. Last year, I did beat myself up a little bit for struggling to reach my word count for a day. I would read things back the day after I wrote them, which, by the way, you probably shouldn't do if you're trying to power through Nano, and I would get discouraged because I felt like it was really bad. And then my writing would not be that great that day because I felt bad about myself. And that's just not how the writing process should be. Now, obviously, I don't have all the answers, but I'm just sharing what I have found to be useful for myself. And hopefully, maybe you can gain a little bit of inspiration from that. But I just have found that if I talk positively to myself about my writing habits and my writing, I'm gonna write better. And if I talk negatively to myself, then I'm not gonna write as well. And that's why it's okay to take a step back if you feel like you need it, because sometimes a little bit of space is what your writing needs in order for it to shine. I know this is up a lot later than I thought it would be. It is certainly not the nano content that I prepared you for, and I don't usually post this kind of, I feel like, story time video, I guess. So lots of different things in this one, but I do really appreciate you watching and for sticking with me throughout this period of me not uploading as much. But once the semester is over, I'm gonna try to start rethinking my video schedule to make it something that's a little bit more manageable, because I don't wanna let this slide unintentionally anymore. I love this channel. I love making videos for you guys. And you know what? Speaking of that, I love you guys. When I started this channel back in July, I really thought that I would have like 10 subscribers and they would be people that I knew. I wouldn't reach any new people. But the fact that I have over 3 times that amount of subscribers and I'm starting to form relationships with booktubers around the world, it's just so surreal. I mean, I know I'm not at a milestone number by any means, but I'm so grateful for it feels like a little bit of a family right now. I'm really grateful that you guys listen to me ramble about books and writing and other literature related things. This has been a dream of mine to start a booktube channel for such a long time, and I'm really glad that I decided to make it a reality, because this community is absolutely fantastic. You guys are all amazing. Thank you so much. Lots of love. And with that, that is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you so choose, and I will see you next time. Happy reading.